Hi, this is TapCat, and welcome to my second viewer Q&A video. Now, for those who might watch this in the future, I'm recording this Saturday, June 17th, 2017. Earlier this week at E3, Firaxis announced a new XCOM 2 expansion called War of the Chosen. And by pure coincidence, at the same time, my fourth season of XCOM 2 here on the channel just finished. I uploaded the final part, or the final part ran, I believe, Thursday of this week. So some of the questions revolve around that. And speaking of which, I might as well just get to it. I have quite a few questions people submitted. Thank you for that. And the most popular by far were how I felt about War of the Chosen, do I intend to play it, and, variations of that. So I'm not sure what I think of it. There's so much we don't know, and we haven't seen 1 minute of gameplay. But that said, I obviously spent a lot of time, digging up all the information I could to prepare the videos that I put out on the subject. And I'm definitely interested in it. I will probably play it. I will probably do a series, but it's going to depend on what I see between now and then. There are some things about the game that concern me. I will probably talk about those more in an upcoming video. And if my concerns reached a certain level, then I wouldn't play it. But I probably will. I would say it's like 80, 90%, somewhere in there. A related question I got is not asking about War of the Chosen specifically, but that from E3, were there any games in particular, that I was anticipating, that I wanted to play? And it's hard for me to answer this, partly because I was actually trying to pay attention to E3 more than I often do. And then the War of the Chosen announcement came, and I was working late into the night every night for the rest of the show, like to get the videos ready that I came out with. So I really didn't have time anymore, but I did go back and I tried to look at as many games as I could that, showed trailers and stuff. I think most of them are just CGI trailers. Those don't tell me anything. I don't know how anyone can get excited about a game based on those, because it's just eye candy and it doesn't teach you anything about what the game is like. So I tend to just blow those off. I love Spider-Man. I've been a longtime fan, like basically since I was a kid. So I would love to think I would play that, but I probably won't, because it's probably just purely an action game. Ashen was another game that I thought looked interesting, but it's co-op only, and it's unlikely that I will find someone to, dedicate that time with. So I probably won't play Ashen. The one that I am most likely to play, although I don't know if I will, is South Park: The Fractured But Whole. And so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. It's not going to be out for months, and I have a feeling I'm going to be neck deep in War of the Chosen when it does, so it may or may not work out. Another question that a couple of people asked revolved around whether I have any intentions of doing like a face reveal, showing myself on camera or whatever. That could happen someday. It's not like, I have some deep, deep fear of it or anything, but I've been asked that before, and I've always, said the same thing, which is that I like the idea of people being able to picture me however they want. Like, I can just be whoever you're comfortable, because everybody is going to have an image in their own mind of what I'm like. And the one thing that I can promise you is I'm not actually going to fit any of them. So I would much rather just let people have that picture, because what's important to me is that, I'm communicating certain things, or I project a certain personality, basically my own. That's important to me, but like what I look like, that's not in my eyes. I also will say, especially for gameplay footage, I personally always find face cam very annoying and distracting. It's usually blocking a part of the screen that has information that I want to see. And so part of what I do is to make videos that I myself would enjoy watching, and doing something that I don't like, that's not very high on my list. So Going back to XCOM 2, I got a question asking whether, now that I was finishing up my most recent series, do I have any interest in playing Long War 2? And other people have asked that. So this particular question wasn't so much asking if I was going to do a series, but if I was just going to play it on my own. And the answer is no. I think when I talked about this prior to doing season 4, I was trying to be like coherent and concise. And so I focused on a few of the things that bothered me the most when I tried playing Long War 2. And I probably gave the impression that those were the only things that kind of held me back. But I will tell you honestly, I just didn't really care for it, like overall. There's so many things that get changed, and I don't like hardly any of them. Basically, the only thing that I genuinely enjoyed were the new aliens, like the changes to the aliens. And I got that when I played with a better Advent 2. I got everything I liked out of Long War from that. And all the other stuff like infiltration and stuff, I don't care about it. If other people do, that's fantastic. Enjoy, have a great time with it. I'm not putting it down, but I didn't care for it. It wasn't interesting to me. And it is very not interesting to me to play a campaign that long, just on and on and on. But I'm not interested in trashing Long War 2. I'm just saying, like, after playing something like a half dozen missions, I never feel like I need to play one again. So no, I won't be playing Long War 2. And so another question, am I going to start streaming on Twitch? And that's another thing. I do get asked from time to time if I want to stream. I have some interest in streaming, but I have worked long and hard to build an audience here on my YouTube channel. And even today, I'm a very small channel, right? I'm getting bigger, but I'm not big by any stretch. To start at ground zero on another platform like Twitch, that's very daunting to me. Also, I really just do not have my life set up for streaming. I don't have that kind of time. I feel like to be successful, you need to do it very regularly and for a good chunk of time. And I don't have the time to do that. I would have to quit recording videos completely. And even then, I'm not sure that I would be doing enough time streaming, to really do the trick. Next up, what TV series or movie would I like to see made into an XCOM-like game? This is actually, I think, a really difficult question. One example that I did think of was the show Falling Skies. I don't know how many people have watched that. It used to be on TNT. It's perfect, but the problem is it's so close in theme and story to XCOM that it would just feel like a complete ripoff of XCOM. So I don't see that working. I was trying to think of like squad versus squad situations. There's a really old TV show I used to watch reruns of when I was a kid called Combat. And it was about a squad of World War II soldiers that would find themselves in various, dangerous situations. Now that would be interesting. But the problem is if it's set in a historical setting like that, you can't really have the kind of progression of, more advanced equipment and stuff like that. Like you're going to get a machine gun. They're going to have machine guns. I guess you could add tanks or something, but I don't think that would work very well. So finally, because I felt like you probably need either sci-fi or fantasy themes to make this work very well. It's hard for me to think of a real world or historical scenario. So Dungeons and Dragons, it's not a movie or a TV show. But I think that idea of progression, and there's so many enemies that they could draw from, I could see making a really good squad-based, turn-based tactical combat game based on D&D. So I would sure be more than happy to give it a try. Next question. In my opinion, which is harder, Commander on Iron Man or Legend difficulty? And of course, this is on XCOM 2. So that's actually a really good question because obviously Legend is a big step up from Commander. Commander is no joke, but Legend, wow, they take it up a couple of notches. But I thought about that. I spent real time considering this. I think it's Commander Iron Man. And I say that because the thing with Iron Man is you just need one thing to go wrong at the wrong time, and you could have a squad wipe. Like, I'm not kidding. Iron Man can be so hard. So, yeah, that's my answer. They're both tough. But I mean, think about it. Legend, no matter how bad it is, if you can just reload, and if you're patient enough and determined enough to just reload until you succeed, well, then, eventually you're going to do pretty well at that mission. But if you get one shot and that's it, I think that trumps the greater base difficulty of going from Commander to Legend. I love this question. Is it true, Commander, that when you look directly into the sun squints? Okay, modesty prevents me from answering that. His second question, how do you come up with your custom XCOM soldiers? And the example he used was Dick Squared. So it's totally just a spur of the moment thing. I got a soldier that the game named Richard. So I called him Dick. That led to Dick Squared. That's all. Others, like, it's just whatever comes to me. So for example, I had a character, and I don't remember her name, but it was an Asian female soldier, and she had a name that I couldn't pronounce, but it reminded me of a character from the movie Big Trouble in Little China named Mao Yin. And so I renamed her Mao Yin. And then I started talking about her that way. Like in the movie, she's sometimes referred to as Mao Yin of the green eyes and stuff like that. And so I started calling her that. Later, I started creating other characters from the same movie. So Jack Burton, Egg Shen, and Gracie Law. I had this whole little sub-theme of Big Trouble in Little China running through this season 4. The people who had seen the movie loved that, and I got some nice comments about it. I'm sure most people were completely oblivious because it's an older film and it wasn't a big hit. It's very much like a cult favorite. And that's okay too. And that's really how I like doing custom soldiers, is just whatever inspires me at the time. So there's your answer. Another question I've gotten from a couple of people is whether I would consider doing something with another YouTuber or some sort of, co-op type thing on a playthrough. And the answer is yes. In fact, I have twice come close. I've had conversations with people that have channels, and I've come actually really close. In fact, the second time it happened, I thought we were going to do it. And then he kind of changed his mind about what he wanted to do. And where I had agreed to do one thing, I wasn't really into his later suggestions. And so we ended up just kind of dropping it. And I'm fine with that. Now, I am planning something, and I'm not going to announce it because I hate kind of saying something and then having it not come true. So just on the off chance it goes bad. But I do have something in the works. It's not another YouTuber, but I think that soon, for the first time ever, there will be a second voice in one of my videos and not from gameplay footage. And it will be a very different type of content than I've ever done before. And I'm also really happy about that. So stay tuned. Hopefully within the next few weeks, I will be able to, have something on that. This question is a long one. I'm going to kind of just shrink it down to the gist. So one viewer asked about how do I find other games that, like XCOM 2, have enough challenge in the turn-based strategy to keep me interested. Because some games may revolve around story a lot, but their combat could be lacking or something like that. That's a kind of a general question, and it's always hard for me to generalize because basically every game is different. But the simple answer is usually I will try to watch some footage of actual gameplay and get a sense of it. So for example, somebody had recently recommended to me Persona 5 in very glowing terms. And so I went and I found some footage of it. And I believe the reason he thought I would like it is because it has tactical turn-based combat. So that makes sense. But the other parts of the game, when I watched it, it was just not interesting to me. Like I had too much clicking through conversations and stuff like that. And so I realized that whatever virtues it has, it's not going to be a good game for me. I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's just not a good game for me. Other than that, like, I think sometimes you just have to play a game. Like when I did Age of Wonders 3, I really liked the combat in that game. Very, very good tactical turn-based combat. I don't think it was a great series because it was too repetitive, but I enjoyed playing it. So I don't know if I have a set formula. It really does just come down to I try to get a good sense of it before I start playing, and then I just have to try it. And it's either going to grab me or it doesn't. Not quite the same, but in a somewhat similar vein, I was also asked if I can describe how I start the process of analyzing a game and creating strategies. They were particularly appreciative of my XCOM 2, guide videos, and wanted to know kind of how I came up with all that. This is going to be a really unsatisfying answer, but I swear it's true. So with XCOM 2, I was getting my butt handed to me when I was playing my first test game. I was playing on Commander, and my God, like the first time I fought a pod with sectoids, and these stupid things had what felt like 1,000,000 health and all these abilities like mind control. And I was like, how am I supposed to beat this? This is crazy. I can't believe what they've done to sectoids. They were the wimps, So I struggled with it for, I don't know, some number of missions. And I really just had a flash of insight. Like a lot of things came together for me. And that it was this smoke and mirrors thing. Like, you think the sectoid is the most dangerous thing, but he's not. He's not doing anything that hurts you on that first turn. And all the pieces clicked for me of, wow, avoiding hospital time is so key because it's so debilitating to have your guys tied down like that. And so the whole thing about prioritizing people like troopers over the sectoid, which just seemed so counterintuitive when I started, it just clicked into place for me. So it was more of a flash of insight than it was this really well-constructed, like basically it started with that kind of flash. And then from there, I started thinking it through more. And the things that I talk about in my strategic overview video, it all stemmed from that. And so from that one little acorn, the whole tree grew. At what pace do I increase difficulty level when I play? Well, honestly, most games I don't play more than once. So, I just pick a difficulty level where I think I won't completely humiliate myself and live with it. On a game like XCOM, I was pretty confident I could start, or XCOM 2, I should say. I was pretty confident I could start on Commander because I had beaten, Enemy Unknown on Classic multiple times. And then I just knew, like, honestly, for me, when I'm playing on the channel, what I've realized more and more over time is if you don't play on the high difficulty setting, no one will watch you. That's just the truth. Like, if you want to play on veteran or veteran or commander or whatever, then I hope you enjoy making the video for your own sake. So after I finished my first one on Commander, it wasn't really an option. If I was going to do a second season, it needed to be on Legend. So that's what I did. And I struggled and I got better. And I think I got better, with each campaign. Like, oh my gosh. In season 4, I'm so much better a player now than I was, when I started. As you would hope I would be after hundreds of hours, right? This is an interesting question. How would I compare XCOM with XCOM 2? What's the overall better game and my reasoning behind it? I'm going to assume when you say XCOM, you mean Enemy Unknown and not the original because I haven't played that. So I have no opinion about which of those two is better. As far as Enemy Unknown goes, I will probably make some people mad when I say this, but I actually think XCOM 2 is a better game overall. There's certainly things I liked about Enemy Unknown better, but what I really dislike about Enemy Unknown is the way as you go up in difficulty, they just add health and pile on the aim, in particular piling on the aim bonuses for the aliens so that just nothing you do. Like you can be standing behind full cover and hunker down and a thin man can one shot kill you. Like early in the game, I really hate it. Later, it's more manageable and I feel like it's more strategic. But when you don't really have any abilities and the enemy is just able to pick you off routinely, and if they hit you, it's very likely to kill you. That's a big turnoff to me. And I feel like the combat is more tactical in XCOM 2. And again, I know a lot of people may not agree with that. That's okay. In fairness to Enemy Unknown, I haven't touched it in years now. And so I would probably have to go back. Maybe I would feel differently if I played it again. I think it would be pretty funny. Like it's been so long and I have XCOM 2 tactics so ingrained in me now. The last time I played XCOM Enemy Within, I felt like I finally had gotten good at the game. And now I don't know if I could get through the first mission. Also, do I have an idea for a mod? Something that I kind of missed or wish would be there. So for me, I have always been frustrated at how few customization of options we have. I feel like that Firaxis has really missed the boat on that. They did do a couple of DLCs. I think Anarchy's Children, it just was the right idea as far as customization options, but totally the wrong theme. I know I have no interest in making people look like a really bad Mad Max, thing. And I think a lot of people weren't too into that. But I would love it if they just had all kinds of stuff that we could choose from. So I would like just more, like especially things that look like street clothes, a wider variety of ways to make my guys look, regardless of what armor they're wearing. But another mod that I would say is I would love to be able to just turn off all of the nag voiceovers from Bradford, Shen, Tygan, all those guys. And when I'm in the final mission, I would just turn off the whole little crap between the speaker and the elder and all that. Especially, I think, because I'm trying to record, it's so frustrating for me to have all these voiceovers popping in when I'm in the middle of trying to say something. That's definitely one of the things I'm not excited about with War of the Chosen, is that they're going to have way more of that stuff in here. And so I'm going to be trying to explain to you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And then they're going to chime in with their crap. And especially the second or third time, that I've heard it, I'm really not going to be too happy. Another question I got is, have I ever played any of the Banner Saga games and would I consider doing video on them? So yes, I played the first Banner Saga and I quite liked it. The only thing I didn't like was the final mission, which has a difficulty spike like almost unparalleled of any game I've ever played. I tried to record it. I wanted to play it for the channel. I could not get any recording software I had at the time to work. For whatever reason, I just could not capture that game. So therefore, you didn't get to see it. But I'm pretty sure I use Shadow Play now. I'm pretty sure it would work. And I even thought about playing Banner Saga, and I own Banner Saga 2, but I haven't played it. And I thought about just doing both in sequence, and then whenever Banner Saga 3 comes out, doing that as well. But I found Battle Brothers, and I decided to play that instead because it's a much newer game, and I thought, maybe more people would be interested in that. And also, frankly, I'm a little more interested in playing a game that I haven't played before than one like Banner Saga that I have. Next up, seeing as how I'm nearly at 5,000 subscribers, do I have any plans of expanding the channel, or is this still a hobby for me? Well, both. Actually, by the time this video goes live, I think I will have hit 5,000 subscribers. I've gotten quite a nice little surge of these videos that I've made about War of the Chosen. But what you got to understand is you need a lot of views to make this anything other than a hobby. Like the best month I've ever had on YouTube, like at the peak of my guide's popularity, I did not earn $200. And so as an adult with a home and all that, you are not supporting yourself on, less than $200 a month. So For me, though, like I am still trying to grow the channel. That's one of the reasons I made the videos I made about War of the Chosen. I thought they would get good visibility and draw some new people to the channel. That does seem to be working. And by the way, if you are a new subscriber, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. So yeah, it's both. I am trying to grow the channel, but it is a hobby. I have to, be realistic about that. Maybe someday it will grow to the point where it will be more than that. I hope so. Any tips for getting started with XCOM 2 Legend difficulty with Iron Man enabled? Yeah, that's tough. I think maybe going back to the question I had before, you could try playing Commander Iron Man just to get used to, flying without a net. And then the other thing is just make sure you really master the basics as much as possible so that you're not going to make any mistakes, like dumb mistakes, ones where you really should know better and, you do it anyway. And the only other thing I can say is really take your time. Since you don't have reloads, really try your best to think things through. It's a long campaign, longer on Legend than it is on the other difficulties. And so, especially if you get on a little bit of a roll, you can get a little sloppy. It happens. It happens to me at least. So this question, I had to do research. It's, did I ever play Mordheim, City of the Damned? They felt it would be up my alley. I had never heard of the game, which answers your question. And I went and looked it up. It does look interesting. So it's a 4-year-old game that's actually based on a board game created by Games Workshop. And if you don't know who that is, they are the owners of or developers of the 40,000 Warhammer 40K. Well, all things Warhammer. So, it looks like it could be interesting. I had just never heard of it. So maybe someday I will play it. It definitely looked cool. Okay, next person asked quite a few questions, and because this is starting to run longer than I wanted it to, I'm going to just answer a handful. What software do I use for editing your videos? Up until recently, I was using Sony Vegas Pro. I have now switched to Adobe Premiere Pro because it renders much, much faster, and especially as I'm moving up to higher resolution. Like I'm starting to do 1440p and I'm hoping to do 4K videos soon. That matters a lot. How many hours do I spend on playing PC games weekly? Well, you see most of it. I spend a lot of time editing videos and whatnot. So I probably spend less time actually playing games than you do. Because when you have a channel, you have to spend time editing, rendering, making thumbnails, figuring out all kinds of stuff that you're going to do beyond just playing the game. Another person who asked a lot of questions, and I'm going to hit them as fast as I can. What are my favorite TV shows? I would say my favorite until recently was The Flash. I really loved the first 2 seasons. I got through season 3, but I don't even think I'm going to watch it anymore. So that's fallen from grace pretty badly. So I would say probably my favorite shows that I still watch today are Game of Thrones, and another one that I like a lot is The Magicians. It's like a mashup of Harry Potter and the Narnia books, but totally twisted, sick, messed up version of the two. I find it really funny and fascinating. What are my top 3 turn-based strategic games? I would say XCOM 2, Civilization 5, and Lords of Waterdeep. That's actually an iOS game that's based on a board game, but I love it. I've played it many, many times on my iPad, and my wife and I love the board game, and we have played it many times. What are my top 3 movies and actors? This is really hard. So I would say, if you ask me what my favorite movie of all time is, it's Braveheart. A very close second is Gone with the Wind. I grew up loving that movie, and it's just every time I watch it, I fall in love with it all over again. And I would say number 3 is a Clint Eastwood movie called Unforgiven. And that's another one I just think has so many layers of character. It's just a great film. By the way, I love talking about movies too. So feel free to ask me all kinds of stuff like that. Like these are probably my 3 favorite movies, but if you ask me, like, what are the 3 movies I just enjoy watching the most or I watch most often? There's very different types of movies. Like the first 2 on the list are very epic, very long movies. And because of that, I don't get to watch them that often. There are other movies that are a little more fun, perhaps, that I also love a lot. As far as my favorite actors go, most of this, I do tend to like a lot of older movies. So the actors reflect that. I would say my favorite actor of all time is probably John Wayne. Again, I grew up watching old movies of him. You know, my dad and mom loved him too. So John Wayne is number 1. James Garner is another one I just love. I think he is so likable and so funny. And if you've never seen Support Your Local Sheriff, that's a great example of him, you know, in action. This is a very funny, relaxed movie. Probably number 3 on my list is Harrison Ford. And, you know, like, I know a lot of people love Han Solo. For me, it was really Indiana Jones that made me see what a great actor he is. And I really like him a lot. What's my favorite NBA team? Well, I grew up in Southern California, so it's the Lakers all the way. Although I don't really watch basketball or sports in general much anymore, I am too busy with the channel. What do I think is generally the best squad composition of 6 soldiers? Well, my preference, my kind of standard group is 2 Rangers, 2 Grenadiers, a specialist, and a gunslinger. Now, I say that and will readily acknowledge that if you can actually get a psionic operative up and running, then he would probably be a good replacement for probably one of the Rangers or one of the Grenadiers. They're obviously very strong. I just can't get them up and running early enough without a mod to matter. So that's my base group, though. Do I think I could beat Legend difficulty of XCOM 2 on a vanilla run, no better advent or anything like that, without using mimic beacons? And would I try? I will say categorically, I don't have any real doubt I could beat the game without mimic beacons. Like, I think if you isolated one thing, I think you could beat the game without plasma weapons. You know, like, I think there's a lot of things you could beat the game. You'll spend more time in the hospital. You might lose more troops. But absolutely, I know I could beat the game without a mimic beacon. Will I try? No. I don't want to. I like playing well. I mean, who knows? Maybe someday, but I don't have any plan to. Which XCOM 2 class do I think is most powerful and why? So that is a really tough question. I think for me, it's probably either the Ranger or the Grenadier. Here's the thing. The Ranger is so dependent on getting in close that using him is a double-edged sword, because there are situations I purposely will not go in for the attack because I know there's a good chance I'll trigger another pod and I'm just not ready to run that risk yet. So that said, though, no one deals the kind of consistent amount of raw damage that a Ranger does. So like in this last campaign where the Swede also got Shredder as his hidden ability, he had to be the most powerful guy that I had. I just, but by the same token, in the campaign before that, when I had Inez, the Grenadier that got rapid fire, I think she was my best soldier. So, it's close, but I guess if I had to pick one, it would be a Ranger, but I definitely would not mock you for saying Grenadier. And honestly, sharpshooters are really good too. So what should be the research priority, weapons or armor? Okay, that's an easy one. It's weapons. Always weapons in XCOM 2. And if you don't know why, watch my strategic overview, because I do talk about that. All right, that's going to do it for now. Now, actually, I'd like to ask you a question as well. I want to go more regular with these Q&As as long as people have questions and are interested in them. I was thinking about doing one a month. And I don't really want to do a special video asking for questions every time. So I have no idea what other channels do with stuff like this. So I would just like some suggestions. Do you think it makes sense to have people leave questions on this video, knowing I'll ask it next time? That's one possibility. And feel free to do that, by the way. But also, like, should I just tell people, hey, if you have a question, use my Twitter, or I can tweet out when I want questions, but most of you don't follow me on Twitter. So obviously, like, that would need to happen for that to be good. Should I start a Facebook page and do it there? Give me some suggestions, and especially if it's things that you've seen other YouTubers do successfully. Because like I say, I just like every now and then I'll see Jesse Cox do a Q&A. Sometimes I visit his channel and I don't even know where he gets the questions from. He just gets them. So yeah, I don't know. So let me know. That's going to do it for now though. Thanks for watching. I hope we see you next time.